There is a quiet moment many people experience after 50. You are standing in the kitchen, early in the morning. The house is still. Coffee is brewing softly. Maybe oatmeal sits gently on the stove. And beside the toaster rests that familiar bottle of fish oil you have taken faithfully for years. One capsule every morning. Because somewhere along the way, you were told it was good for your heart, good for your brain, good for aging well. So, you stayed consistent. And yet, some mornings still feel strangely heavy. Your thoughts move slower than they once did. Familiar names take a few extra seconds to come back. Your joints feel stiff, getting out of the car. By mid-afternoon, your mental energy fades, in a way that feels heavier than ordinary tiredness. Not dramatic, just dull. Like static, quietly humming in the background of everyday life. And eventually, a quiet question begins to surface. If I have been taking omega-3 all these years, why do I not actually feel different? That question matters more than most people realize. Because the answer may not be that your body is broken. And it may not even be that you need more fish oil. Sometimes, the deeper issue is interference. Not deficiency alone, but biological strain, created by years of stress, inflammation, poor recovery, and nutritional imbalance. The human brain is an extraordinarily demanding organ. Though it represents only a small percentage of body weight, it consumes enormous amounts of energy, and much of its structure is built from fat, especially a particular omega-3 fatty acid, known as DHA. DHA is not simply stored fuel. It becomes part of the physical architecture of the nervous system itself. It helps shape the membranes surrounding brain cells. Tiny, flexible boundaries that allow neurons to communicate smoothly with one another. Nutrients move through them. Signals pass across them. Memory, attention, emotional regulation, and recovery all depend on the fluidity of those microscopic conversations happening every second inside the brain. And fluidity matters. Because when membranes become rigid, inflamed, or overwhelmed, communication becomes less efficient. Not suddenly. Not dramatically. Just slower. Less resilient. Like trying to hear a soft voice through heavy traffic. Researchers have long been interested in the relationship between marine nutrients and human brain development. Not because fish magically created intelligence, but nutrients like DHA may have helped support the enormous energy demands of the growing human nervous system. Throughout human evolution, in many ways, the brain is an energy-intensive electrical network that depends heavily on balance. But balance is becoming harder to maintain in the modern world, especially after decades of exposure to a food environment the human nervous system never fully adapted to. For many adults over 50, the issue is not simply low omega-3 intake. The deeper issue may be the long-term ratio between omega-3 and omega-6 fats across an entire lifetime of eating. Omega-6 fats are not bad. They are essential for human health. The body needs them for immunity, healing, and normal physiological function. Inflammation itself is not the enemy either. Without inflammation, the body could not repair injury or defend itself. The problem is chronic excess, chronic imbalance. Some researchers, supported by NIH data, have observed that modern Western diets may contain omega-6 to omega-3 ratios approaching 16 to 1, sometimes even higher. Historically, human dietary patterns were likely far more balanced. The issue is not one single ingredient. It is the overall pattern of modern eating, repeated across many decades. At the cellular level, fats compete for space within membranes and signaling pathways throughout the body, including the brain itself. When omega-6 intake remains excessively high for long periods, inflammatory signaling may stay elevated longer than the body was designed to handle. And over time, cell membranes may become less flexible and less responsive. Communication between cells can become less efficient. Recovery slows. The nervous system becomes less adaptable under stress. And even when omega-3 is present, the body may struggle to fully use it. In an environment already overloaded by chronic inflammation, not necessarily diseased, just burdened, many adults describe this feeling without realizing how biological it may actually be. They say things like, "I do not bounce back the way I used to. My brain feels foggy, even when I sleep. I feel inflamed all the time. I do not feel sharp anymore." And perhaps you have quietly had moments like that yourself. Sometimes, that experience is not one dramatic event. It is decades of subtle strain, accumulating beneath the surface. And the modern food environment accelerated that process quietly, faster than most people realized. If you look back only 2 or 3 generations in America, family cooking looked very different. Meals were simpler, less processed. Restaurants were occasional treats, rather than daily routine. Most people were not constantly surrounded by ultra-processed snacks, refined oils, and convenience foods engineered for shelf life and constant consumption. Then slowly, almost without people noticing, the food environment changed. Large-scale industrial oils became deeply embedded into packaged foods, fast food fryers, frozen meals, sauces, chips, crackers, and restaurant cooking. Because they were inexpensive, versatile, and stable for mass production. Again, this is not about fear. These oils are not poison. But human biology changes slowly. Industrial food systems changed extremely fast. And the nervous system of a 65-year-old adult today has often spent decades adapting to a nutritional environment that barely existed. During their grandparents' early lives, the body adapts as best it can. But adaptation has a cost. Especially when stress, poor sleep, emotional exhaustion, sedentary routines, and processed food overload begin stacking together year after year. This is why some people take fish oil consistently, yet still feel inflamed, mentally fatigued, or emotionally depleted. Because isolated supplementation cannot fully overcome an environment of constant interference. The body is not a machine that responds instantly to one capsule. It is an ecosystem, and ecosystems respond to patterns. This is also why the future of omega-3 research is becoming less focused on more, and more focused on delivery, absorption, and biological context. Scientists are exploring forms of omega-3 that may integrate differently into cell membranes. Others are studying algae-based DHA as a cleaner marine source. Researchers continue investigating how membrane flexibility may affect cognition, mood regulation, inflammation, and nervous system resilience. But perhaps the deeper lesson is simpler than any supplement technology. The body communicates more clearly when interference is reduced. Sometimes, supporting omega-3 status is less about aggressive optimization and more about creating a calmer nutritional environment overall. Less ultra-processed food, more whole foods, more recovery, better sleep, more metabolic stability, not perfection, just less overload. And this matters profoundly after 50, because aging changes how resilient the nervous system feels under pressure. In younger years, the body often compensates quickly. Recovery happens faster. Inflammation resolves more efficiently. The brain tolerates nutritional chaos with greater flexibility. But later in life, subtle imbalances become more noticeable. The joints stiffen sooner after long drives. Mental fatigue lingers longer after stressful days. Even one poor night of sleep can affect the next entire morning. And the nervous system begins asking for support. In quieter ways. Not louder stimulation. Support. That shift can feel emotional for many people. Because modern culture often treats aging like something that must be fought aggressively. More products. More hacks. More stimulation. But many adults eventually discover something unexpected. Healing often feels quieter than that. More nourishing. More patient. More rhythmic. Sometimes, recovery begins when the body finally experiences less overload. And maybe that is the deeper message inside the omega-3 conversation. Not that one nutrient will save us, but that the human body still responds remarkably well to balance, to consistency, to nourishment, to gentleness, sustained over time. Because aging is not simply the passing of time. It is also the accumulation of inflammation, stress, and cellular wear over many years. Omega-3 reminds us that recovery often begins with small daily choices, repeated consistently over time. Sometimes, the body does not need more stimulation at all. It simply needs to be nourished with greater care. And perhaps that is why so many people over 50 are beginning to rethink health entirely. Not as a desperate attempt to feel young again, but as an invitation to become more biologically aligned with what the body needed all along. More stillness, less overload, better nourishment, less interference. Because the goal was never to force the body into perfection, only to help it feel fluid again. And sometimes, that quiet return to balance changes everything.